for the world this week, 7 days. 4 Paris-based correspondents, 1 hour. With us, Craig Capitas, correspondent at large for Quartz in the Atlantic Group. How are you, sir?
Okay.
Also with us, Ulrike Kolterman, journalist and author. Your next book is going to be on French nuclear power.
Right.
A little bit of lighter reading I see you brought in for us. What is that?
One is out, wherever the camera is. So this is Walking Tours in Paris. Unfortunately, it's written in German.
For now.
But for now. Maybe there will be translation one day.
Okay. Also with us is Nupur Tiwari, resident editor for Europe for Indian broadcaster NDTV. Welcome. And Judah Grunstein of World Politics Review, which you can find at
worldpoliticsreview.com.
Okay, and you can find us, by the way, on Facebook, the World This Week's Facebook page, where you've been weighing in on the conversation, and Twitter. You can find us at François F24. We have breaking news this Friday, and it's out of Beirut, confirmation that there's been the biggest bombing inside of the capital of its kind since 2008. Wissam al-Hassan, a brigadier general, who there was the colonel who arrested a former minister accused of carrying bombs from Syria to Lebanon, is dead. He was also the one who linked Hezbollah to the killing of Rafiq Hariri. He had at least 7 others killed, according to the Associated Press. Judah Grunstein, this Friday, still trying to piece together what happened. And of course, the first question in the newsroom was how much of this has to do with events taking place across the border.
I think, obviously when you have that kind of circumstantial evidence and connections involved, the immediate suspicion is that it has to do with the Syrian conflict, and that this is essentially, there have been minor flare-ups over the past 6 months to a year, or 6 months in Lebanon, but they've been relatively contained. This is the sort of worst case scenario where in essence any intervention risks to explode the conflict all over the region, but not intervening and letting the conflict in Syria continue the way it does also risks to have it overflow into the bordering states. So it's, again, we need to wait and see what kind of answers they come up with, but for now it's definitely pretty alarming.
And no one's claimed responsibility. Of course, there's been car bombings like this, many of them in the past. So the Lebanese themselves, a lot of bad blood amongst each other too. It's difficult to jump to any hasty conclusions. And Craig Capitas, throughout most of the past 19 months, the Lebanese have tried their darndest to stay under the radar.
Boy, you're not kidding. What's interesting in watching the news reports come out of the region, not only on France 24, which has done some great coverage over the past 45 minutes, but I was checking in on Al Jazeera. Everyone says, oh, this is spilling over from Syria. It's the spillover. Hell, it spilled over decades ago. It's just now starting to boil. This assassination is a big deal. This fella was a major player, not only with the Rafiki family and the government, but also in the business community there, and in the intelligence community and the political community. I think there's going to be some major repercussions from this assassination, sadly.
Ulrike Kolterman?
Yeah, I think it raises once more the question what the international community is going to do, because it's just one event more that the international community stands there looking at it. Also, especially the US government, everyone is busy with their own problems, but this crisis is getting bigger and bigger, and it's quite obvious that this attack will be probably linked to the Syria crisis. So it just puts the question again on the table, what to do.
All right, and it's a story that will continue to follow. Speaking of the United States, Barack Obama did indeed rebound in the second of 3 presidential debates, but was it enough to stop the slide? The New York Daily News this Friday highlighting a latest Gallup poll that has Romney pulling ahead by 7 points in the popular vote. Other surveys are much tighter, by the way. And in fact, when you look at the Electoral College map, there too the surveys vary wildly. This one is from Talking Points memo. In it, you see Obama on 259 electoral votes. But another one of these maps, from this one from RealClearPolitics.com, puts the Republican ahead this time. This survey, though, more conservative, Judah Grunstein. When you look at the counting, for instance, they put, I see Pennsylvania in the undecided column, but it really is neck and neck, it seems.
Yeah, it is, and at the same time, it's not as surprising really as people are making it out to be. The thing is that Romney was sort of introduced to the world, but also to a lot of American voters through the process of the Republican primaries, which, given the people he was up on the stage with, it was easy to underestimate him or even to think that he wouldn't make a very strong candidate. At the same time, his record as governor was strong. He had to run away from that in the Republican primaries. He doesn't necessarily need to do that so much in the general election. The second thing is that fundamentally and structurally, this is a really hard election for a sitting president to win, given the kind of unemployment that's going on, given, some of the indicators in terms of the economy are a little better. But historically, and even if we look at the elections over the past year here in Europe and throughout the world, the people who have been in office over the last 4 or 5 years have been voted out. So the fact that after the first debate, Romney was able to essentially cut himself loose from some of the negative baggage that he had been carrying since the primaries, and even that his convention didn't really help him with. That first debate allowed him to cut loose from some of that, and I think it tightened up the race in a way that it should have been all along, in terms of the fundamentals of what's going on in the country.
Newport Tiwari, here in Paris, a lot of people are really surprised that it's this close. Barack Obama is very popular in the French capital. Are you surprised?
I'm not surprised. In fact, what we'll have to wait and see is which way the U.S. electorate, how is the U.S. electorate going to see these two candidates in terms of incumbency? You said that, the economic crisis has given a tough time to all presidents over here. Sarkozy lost because of the economic crisis. So elections are more and more increasingly becoming referendums. People are voting for the economic policies of governments. But at the same time, I think the one big disadvantage that Romney has is that he's this wealthy guy. So are people going to be really forming their opinions, putting their trust into this man who happens to be another rich guy? So it's going to be a kind of referendum, and whether or not, and anyway, things are going to be decided at the last minute. There's still another report that's going to be out on unemployment. We are going to be waiting for that. So I think this is going to be, I'm not surprised, in fact, that it's so close, but at the same time, I really am surprised as to how the Americans can want to put their trust into a man like Romney. I mean, personally, I'm surprised at that.
Craig Kapitas?
I'm about 3 days away from saying, stick a fork in it, it's over, it's done. Briefly, the American people were damn proud to have elected an African-American president of the United States, whether they were Democrat or Republican. Everyone was damn proud, unless you were fringe. Everyone wanted to see him succeed. Now, if you believe the polls, you believe what you're hearing, you believe what you're seeing, unemployment, etc., his actions in foreign policy vis-a-vis Libya and other things, the man is not really up to the task. And Americans are an interesting lot. They will give someone a chance. And if they can't pull it off, they're happy to kick him out and give someone else a chance, whether he's rich or poor or black or white. And I'm afraid what we're seeing here, particularly if you had the opportunity to take a look at what went down at the annual Al Smith dinner last night in New York. It's something everyone out there around the world's probably never heard of, but look up the Al Smith dinner on YouTube and take a look at the two candidates and what they said. Romney is not the demon that the Democrats have spent the past year portraying him as. The Republicans have done their best to demonize Obama as well. There's enough demonization to go around. But the Democrats have really been nasty about this, saying he's this rich man who doesn't care. He's, he hides his money here, he hides his money there. Americans don't make up their mind on who they're going to really vote for, particularly the uncommitted voter, until the last few weeks. And right now, by all indications, that uncommitted voter seems to be turning towards Romney for the simple reason that Obama hasn't created jobs.
All right, before we continue, let's explain what the Alfred Smith Dinner is. It's a time-honored tradition in the United States. The candidates, in the heat of the homestretch of the presidential election campaign, come together in New York City. The Catholic Church, or the Catholic Archdiocese of New York, organizes it to benefit needy children, and they engage, it's the tradition, in a bit of self-deprecation.
I've been writing about the distance between the American dream and American reality. I've been gauging that distance has driven me through a big part of my life. Shining sea, that wherever this flag is flown, that wherever this flag is flown.
All right, that was Bruce Springsteen there at a campaign stop in Ohio. Let's hear from the candidates now.
Now, Al, you are right. A campaign can require a lot of wardrobe changes. We blue jeans in the morning, perhaps, suit for a lunch fundraiser, sport coat for dinner, but it's nice to finally relax and to wear what Ann and I wear around the house.
Ultimately, though, tonight's not about the disagreements Governor Romney and I may have. It's what we have in common, beginning with our unusual names. Actually, Mitt is his middle name. I wish I could use my middle name.
Ulrike Coleman, will we see this kind of exercise in the run-up to the general election in Germany next year?
They have more humor than they seem to have. But I just want to get back to the debate and just say one thing more. 50% of the voters are women. And one thing from the debate was very revealing what Romney thinks about women. The famous quote when he talked about binders full of women and how he hired lots of women. This was so revealing because it just showed that women, for him, they need affirmative action, and they are sort of objects, and they have to be home to prepare the meal for the kids. It was so revealing, and I just hope that American women are not convinced by that.
I'm not for Romney here, but what he said goes back to the fact that he's a management consultant. This is management consultant speak.
It's also a presidential debate, you know.
Oh, no,
you don't talk about women
he's not a.
But I think also that,
No way.
I am not defending what he did. He put his foot in his mouth. There's no. But this is how management consultants talk.
But he's not a management consultant. He's a presidential candidate.
At his core, he is. But here's the thing: when you said, for instance, that Obama isn't up to the job, I wouldn't personally agree with that. I agree that is the image that the Republican Party has tried to put on him, and it has, to a certain degree, stuck. And part of it is because at his core, at the first debate, as we saw, he speaks and stumbles and stutters and thinks long thoughts and expresses them relatively eloquently when you read the transcript, but it takes a little time to get there. By the same token, though, Mitt Romney is sort of out of step, not only with the average American voter, but with the way, but even as far as politicians go, he has an awkward sense of humor. Often he'll tell jokes that just come out as being very weird.
That's very true.
I find it kind of endearing and charming because it's almost where you see him as he really is. But at the same time, what you're saying is very true. He is not only a management consultant. Usually when you have Republican candidates, they're business guys, right? What's the business that Romney was in? Buying companies, chopping them up, and selling them off for a profit. It's the sort of thing that it's a hard sell. his whole core identity is a hard sell.
But how
and
is
that's
that
what,
a defense, really? I mean, we're talking
I'm
about
not
his...
defending him. I'm saying that's what he's had to overcome. And
Yeah,
so
but-
every time that's revealed, it puts another hurdle in front of
Oh,
himself.
you're
In the same way
absolutely
that
right.
every time Obama takes a while to get through a thought, it puts another hurdle.
Unless
in
you're
front of him.
unless you're unemployed. If you
But
look
the
if you look at the
unemployment rate
polls,
is at 7.8, and
No,
it's
it's-
down in a year.
if
And
you
there are
if you
still
bel- if
figures from
if you
October coming
believe
up.
that, then you believe Konrad Adenauer is still alive in the European Union.
No, but coming back to what Ulrika was saying about the way Romney spoke about women, I mean, you know, a lot of Republicans have been defending him, saying that that's not what's important and so on. But
It is.
But if I were an American woman, I'd have liked to see Romney really come up and talk very unequivocally about what
Absolutely.
what he wanted to do, rather than say binders full of women, like he'd say truckloads of cabbages, or I don't know.
That's a pretty good, yeah.
You know, a bunch of rags, or I don't know, something like
Yeah.
that. So I think it does. I mean, after all, we are discussing debates over here, and the way a potential, I mean, a presidential candidate takes a stand about women, and again, even for his ad campaigns, you know, like Ulrika said, that there is this kind of condescension. And I mean, after all, we can't sweep this aside and say, okay, fine, this is because he's a businessman, so he speaks like
But
that.
why do you think he can't?
If I could just say one thing. The thing about this election right now, what's become clear, as opposed to 2008, where there really was this sort of upswelling of adoration for Barack Obama among Democratic voters and even centrist voters, this is really an election that's boiling down to the lesser of two evils. Romney is an okay candidate, but he doesn't generate a huge amount of enthusiasm. Obama is a very tainted candidate, incumbent candidate, in the sense that he has had what has been a disappointing record to even his supporters.
Right.
The thing is, there's Michael Kinsley, who has this, I'm paraphrasing his famous quote, you probably know it by heart. A gaffe is when a politician accidentally tells the truth. And with these two candidates, their stumbles are when they accidentally give in to who they really are. So that's what I was saying. For Romney, it's when the business manager in him comes out.
Right.
And for Obama, it's when the college professor comes out. And they're both fighting as hard as they can to keep that away from voters so that they don't turn voters off even more. And so every time they make that mistake of letting their real self come out, it makes this choice of the lesser of two evils. They're sort of fighting their way down to the bottom of public opinion, of the voters' preferences, because there's not a huge amount of enthusiasm for either one at this point.
That's a great definition of modern American presidential politics. Exactly.
Especially
exactly what it's come down
especially
to.
for a first-term candidate.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The
and
same
one
thing
who
we saw in-
everyone
All right.
wanted to see work out well.
All right, and when we come back, we're going to turn our thoughts to this continent and the latest reforms out of Brussels and how they're going down both here and across the channel. And also, the wedding of the century took place in Mumbai. Stay with us.